The global AI boom is moving trillions of dollars through the economy, driven by staggering $500 billion deals for NVIDIA hardware. From the outside, Silicon Valley appears to hold every lever of power in this ecosystem. But an NVIDIA GPU cannot train a model without high bandwidth memory, or HBM. These specialized chips stack memory layers vertically to move data at the speeds required for modern intelligence. Without this specific hardware, the world's most advanced processors are useless. This chart reveals the primary choke point of the AI age. Roughly 90% of the HBM required by NVIDIA is manufactured by exactly two South Korean companies, Samsung and SK Hynix. NVIDIA's reliance on this pipeline is total. This dual-source dependency from Korea is the physical foundation for the $500 billion valuation of the upcoming Vera Rubin platform. For 40 years, this concentration of power was balanced by a fierce state-backed rivalry. Samsung and SK Hynix operated in a permanent price war, aggressively expanding their manufacturing complexes to crush one another and driving global memory costs down. The tech economy relied on the assumption that these two giants would continue to destroy each other on price. That assumption failed the moment Seoul decided the prize was no longer individual market share, but national market control. In July 2026, the K Semiconductor Strategy 2.0 policy leak confirmed a shift in the state's role. The Ministry of Trade, Industry, and Energy began instructing these two bitter rivals to coordinate their operations and synchronize their factory expansions. The government intervention arrived as both companies reached the zenith of their influence. For the first time, both Samsung and SK Hynix were generating record cash flows simultaneously, providing the state with two healthy champions to lead a unified front. The data from early 2026 illustrates this dual dominance. Samsung reported a record operating profit of $58.5 billion, while SK Hynix achieved profit margins of 72%. South Korea is now managing its memory production with the same strategic coordination a nation uses for its oil reserves. They are transitioning from a global factory floor into a price setter for the AI era. This is a deliberate sovereign maneuver. The state is consolidating the country's manufacturing capacity under its own supervision, effectively overriding 40 years of market competition. The most direct way to secure a monopoly would be a formal corporate merger between Samsung and SK Hynix. However, international antitrust regulators would immediately block any legal consolidation that puts 70% of the world's DRAM under a single corporate roof. To bypass these regulations, Seoul uses a model called coordinated capacity governance. As this diagram shows, the companies remain legally distinct entities while operating as a single synchronized supply unit. The coordination happens in a monthly joint council. Government representatives hold veto power over factory expansions, ensuring that neither company can independently flood the market and crash prices. By using the state as a central node, Korea achieves the leverage of a monopoly without the legal complications of a merger. They unified the industry's behavior without ever merging the companies themselves. To maintain discipline, the government controls a 100 trillion won subsidy pool. These funds only flow to companies that follow the state's coordinated roadmap, effectively punishing unilateral overbuilding. This control changes market mechanics. In a downturn, the cartel cuts supply to establish a price floor, ending boom and bust cycles. During an AI boom, they restrict supply, forcing hyperscalers to pay a premium, extracting maximum rent. These stabilized profits serve a secondary purpose. The billions generated by the memory cartel act as a war chest for Samsung's separate competition with TSMC. Advanced HBM chips are no longer sold on a purely open market. Instead, they are allocated to strategic partners, only after receiving approval from Seoul. This structure stabilizes volatile hardware cycles into a regulated, state-guaranteed utility. It ensures that the profits from commodity memory are consistently redirected toward Korea's broader semiconductor ambitions. But artificial scarcity creates its own opposition. When a cartel restricts a critical resource, it provides the financial incentive for its customers to fund a rebellion. When OPEC restricted the global oil supply, it made expensive U.S. shale extraction profitable and viable. Korea's memory strategy is likely to trigger a similar global response. A coordinated Korean monopoly directly challenges the goals of the U.S. CHIPS Act. This invites Washington to retaliate with emergency tariffs or to direct massive new subsidies toward domestic alternatives like Micron. Corporate customers are also looking for an exit. NVIDIA cannot afford to be trapped by a single-source choke point and will likely fund any competitor capable of providing an alternative to the Korean supply. The strategy also benefits China. By propping up global prices, the Korean cartel gives Chinese manufacturers in Hefei the profit margins they need to survive and invest in more advanced technology. Controlling the supply provides significant pricing power today, but it also signals to every major buyer that they must fund a way to break that control tomorrow. Despite the risks of blowback, South Korea currently holds decisive leverage over the physical hardware required for the AI revolution. After decades of funding two separate gladiators, the state merged their operations into a unified monopoly right as the world became dependent on their output. Market share alone is no longer enough to insulate a technology company when the state itself decides to redraw the market. In the AI economy, code is tethered to a physical layer of silicon. By controlling that layer, a nation gains leverage over the intelligence built on top of it. By ensuring that global AI development is dependent on Seoul's industrial policy, the Korean government has redefined the meaning of semiconductor sovereignty. They have demonstrated that in this century, the state is the only entity capable of building a truly unbreakable moat.